Hi Ian, this is Suicide Friendly. You made a remark in the beginning of your Relativity 1 video that I think is rather profound. You said that you believe that everything is relative to a single point of observation and that everything exists in a wave of possibilities until it is observed and then it becomes something. That's pretty powerful. I mean, you've managed to accomplish something with that statement that the greatest minds in physics have been unable to accomplish in the last 3/4 of a century. You have combined relativity with quantum mechanics. Congratulations. But I'm not laughing at you because I actually agree with you. I wrote a paper about 6 years ago that stated that I believed that the frame of reference from Einstein's special theory of relativity is symmetrical with quantum mechanics' point of observation, but they're supposed to be two completely different concepts. I mean, Einstein's frame of reference is supposed to be nothing more than a framework of coordinate values and motion values used to establish a position from which you can interact with your surroundings from. But it's not supposed to have anything to do with a thinking, observing being. I mean, a rock flying through space has a frame of reference and interacts with its surroundings accordingly. Now, the point of observation in quantum mechanics is something completely different entirely, or it's supposed to be. In quantum mechanics, a particle does not exist in reality until it is observed or measured. It exists in what's known as a superposition of possible states, which is also called a wave function. And once that particle is observed or measured, that wave function collapses into one single state and it enters our reality. Again, those are supposed to be two completely different concepts. The reason I believe that these two separate concepts are symmetrical is due to the two-slit experiment. In the two-slit experiment, if you continually shoot a single photon at two slits in a panel but do not measure and observe which slit that photon goes through, it will eventually create an interference pattern on a back reflector panel. Quantum mechanics says that the reason this happens is because since you're not measuring or observing which slit that photon goes through, it still exists in a superposition of possible states in its wave function. And so one of those possible states will take that photon through slit A, another one of those possible states will take that photon through slit B. Those two possible states interfere with each other and create an interference pattern on the back wall. Now, to help explain my interpretation of why this happens, I'm going to read from my paper. Relativity shows us that space and time are relative, but that's not all. Physical reality itself is also relative, not just the perception of reality, but its actual existence. Each individual quantum of matter and force are relative to a frame of reference. Where is the proof? Geometry shows that if space and time are relative, position must also be relative. It is mathematically possible for frame of reference A and frame of reference B to meet exactly at point C and have point D be in a different position for frame of reference A than it is for frame of reference B. Even though A and B are both at the same point C, point D can exist west of point C from A's frame of reference and east of point C from B's frame of reference at the same time. So these two separate relative positions for point D, which we will call point AD and point BD, can just as easily represent the positions of the two slits in a double slit experiment. There is your interference pattern. Reality is relative to your frame of reference. A current widely held theory to explain the indeterminacy of matter and force and the interference pattern in the two-slit experiment is the many worlds theory. It states that every possible outcome to an experiment or interaction of any kind that can happen does happen in parallel universes. It says the reason a single photon aimed at two slits can contribute to an interference pattern is because since there are two possible outcomes to the experiment, meaning the photon can go through slit A or slit B, the universe splits in two, and in one universe the photon goes through A, and in the second universe the photon goes through B. The two possible outcomes interfere with each other and contribute to an interference pattern. It also states that in a situation where there are an infinite amount of possible outcomes to an experiment, there will be an infinite amount of split parallel universes created to accommodate all the possible outcomes. I suggest that the reason the single photon in a two-slit experiment contributes to an interference pattern is because there is a possible frame of reference for observing that experiment that would place the photon in a position to align with slit A, and another possible frame of reference for observing an experiment that would place the photon in a position that would align with slit B. I also suggest that the possible positions or outcomes to any experiment or any observation is limited to the positions or outcomes that are aligned with the different frames of reference that are possible for that observation. Instead of many universes, I see only one universe, but many different realities inside that one universe. Again, not different perceptions or interpretations, but actual different individual physical realities for each different frame of reference or point of observation that is possible. Quantum theory suggests that a particle does not exist in reality until it is observed. It exists only in a superposition of possible states or realities. The wave function breaks down to a single state of reality only when it is observed. The piece of the puzzle that physicists miss is that the observer's point of observation in quantum theory and the observer's frame of reference in relativity are one in the same. It's not an observation that breaks down a wave function, but a relation in and of time and space between the observer and that which is being observed. A couple other points that I think I should make real quick is that the effects of relativity are that change for different frames of reference, such as the slowing of time, the warping of space, the compression of matter, and so on. These effects are not really relevant to the human condition, and the reason why is because these effects only manifest under extreme conditions. For example, if one could possibly travel at half the speed of light, which is utterly impossible because the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second, so half the speed of light would be 93,000 miles per second. But theoretically, if you could possibly travel in this spaceship, then you would be able to measure a difference in how time passes for you compared relative to someone on Earth. Time would pass slower for you from about 25% or so relative to somebody on Earth. But if a human got in the fastest spaceship that was made today and measured this difference, it would be almost unmeasurable. It's negligible. It's like 1/10,000th of a percent or something. The last point I want to make real quick about quantum mechanics is a point that is often misunderstood and misrepresented by things like the movies The Secret and What the Bleep Do We Know. And this point is that because of the fact that a particle exists in a superposition of possible states and an observation will collapse that wave function down to one state, a lot of people interpret that as meaning that humans manifest their own reality. But the thing is even though it's an observation that collapses that wave function into one state, it has been shown that that particle is ruled by probabilities and chance. Where and how it manifests is completely ruled by chance and probabilities. And the predictions that quantum mechanics make as far as these probabilities have been shown that they are never wrong. That's why quantum theory is known as the most successful theory ever, because its predictions have come true every single time. When the masters of quantum mechanics were laying down the foundations of the theory, people like Niels Bohr and Heisenberg and so on, Einstein had a big problem with this, and he made the statement that God does not play dice with the universe. But every single advancement and experiment in quantum theory in the last 3/4 of a century has shown that Einstein was wrong, that reality is ruled by probability and by chance. Many of you might interpret this thinking that I'm saying that man does not have control over his own destiny, and I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. Even though everything in reality is ruled by probabilities, and every time you walk out your door, every time you get out of bed in the morning, every action that you do is a roll of the dice, and you don't know, what numbers are going to turn up. Luck does play a big part of it. But the reason why I believe that man does control his own destiny is because even though he has no control over any single roll of that dice, through hard work, persistence, and positive thinking, he can set himself up so that he will continually roll the dice until the desired outcome comes up. But anyways, with that, I doubt that very many people were able to sit through this entire video, so congratulations to you that made it, and thanks for listening. Peace.